In July 1991, the same month the blockbuster T2 hit the screens, Dark Horse Comics took a deep dive into the Terminator universe with One Shot, a 51-page standalone comic. The timing was no coincidence. It aligned perfectly with the movie's release, offering fans a fresh perspective on the familiar Terminator narrative. Set in 1984, paralleling the original movie's timeline, the story begins in San Francisco, a shift from the usual Los Angeles backdrop. This comic introduces us to a new character named Sarah Connor, whose life takes on an unexpected turn due to her newly acquired last name. Unlike the Sarah Connor we know from the films, this one is embroiled in a dark plot to murder her wealthy husband, Michael Connor. But destiny has other plans, thanks to her infamous name. The thrilling part about One Shot is that it focuses on the first female T-800 Terminator, as the Arnold Schwarzenegger portrayed T-800 hunts down Sarah Connor in Los Angeles. This female Terminator zeroes in on the fourth Sarah Connor, who is in San Francisco. So, without further ado, let's dive deep into Miss Terminator, shall we? Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. The Curious Case of Sarah Connors. The story begins in the future, a future where lifeless, breathless, and bloodless machines fought against humans. Of course, both sides fought long and hard, but by now, the war was almost over, and one could say it was a postscript. The humans, led by John Connor, stormed the machines' master control. The ultimate victory seemed within sight as the humans breached the control's inner sanctum just in time to see an 800 model Terminator vanish before their eyes. They needed to know what this meant, so they checked the computers, and Connor's man found out that the device the Terminator stood in before vanishing was a time machine. The cyborg had gone back in time with a single mission: to kill John Connor's mother, Sarah. Now, someone was needed to follow the 800 model into the past and save Sarah Connor. The volunteer for the job turned out to be Sergeant Kyle Reese, much like was sent back in time in the movie to save Sarah Connor. In the movie, Reese saw John as something of a surrogate father, and the comic retains the complexity of their relationship through statements like Connor often looked at Reese in a warm and strange yet sad way. Nevertheless, more serious issues exist in this world. You see, no one in the future knew that another Terminator had already been sent back in time, and the one Connor Reese and the others just witnessed disappearing was the second of them. The cyborg that Reese encountered used a page from a phone book to locate John Connor's mother. The other Terminator, the first one, went a different route. In the gun shop where it would find weaponry and clothing, it used to store its computer modem and its own advanced knowledge of computer records up to the minute records. The latest edition of the phone book was printed a month ago. Sarah Lang and John Connor had been married for 13 days and had gone for their honeymoon in San Francisco, far away from the smog and guns and bullets that plagued Los Angeles. It did not take long for the cyborg to figure out where Sarah Connor was, but here's the twist. She is one of the many Sarah Connors. The female Terminator, the first one, was racing her car on the Pacific Coast Highway when two cops intercepted the speeding vehicle. They gave her a chase, but she opened heavy fire on them. Both cops were dead before they could even report the description of their killer. The following day, Los Angeles cops find themselves in a giant mess. We meet Ellis Ruggles, a former cop who still sometimes visits the station to catch up on what's new and exchanges tales with his former colleagues. After his retirement, Ruggles adopted a monkey named Peanut to keep him company. On his regular station visits, Ruggles would rediscover that life in the station was boringly busy and busily boring. The crimes remained the same while the criminals changed, new generation taking over from the old. However, today was different. Today, all the cops were acting crazy, as if all of the world's crimes were being committed in LA. The previous night had been a series of killings. An entire club full of people met the same fate as a precinct, all shot to hell. There were a lot of questions that needed answers, but there was nowhere to be found. Not yet, anyway. Hell, the cops were about to learn that they did not even know what questions to ask. One of the cops informed Ruggles that it was all linked to Sarah Connor, and that Sarah Connor had already been killed, and the only suspect was a man named Kyle Reese. 2 Sarah Connors were already dead. One was missing, and the fourth was honeymooning. Ruggles came back to his apartment and said something interestingly peculiar to his pet. "I thought it was over for us. Guess you are never too old for surprises." While I know what he meant, I am not gonna spoil it for you. Not yet. The Pursuit. The next panel takes us to Michael Connor, an extremely rich artist who was thinking about his new wife, Sarah. This fourth Sarah Connors, however, was a piece of work. While her husband was away, she called someone named Alex and asked him to delay the plan of murdering her husband. After spending hours at a hotel room waiting for her husband, she decided to go out for a while. However, the female Terminator arrived at the hotel determined to kill Sarah Connor. Once again, it was a bloodbath. The Terminator spotted Sarah and chased her through the hotel. But right before she could take down this wannabe husband killer, someone stopped the Terminator. Making use of the small window, Sarah managed to get out of the hotel and into a cab. Meanwhile, the cops were alerted of the development and reached the scene in no time. She came to the studio of Alex Gander, the man supposed to kill her husband. Sarah and Alex seemed to be in love. They discussed their grand plan in detail, but that's not important right now. What's important is that Michael reached the crime spot, his hotel, and is approached by Ruggles, who tells him that although his wife is safe, she is still in danger. The scene shifts to Alex's studio, where the female Terminator has followed Sarah to. Of course, Alex loses his life in no time, but Sarah, even the thinker, has always on her feet, first burned the Terminator and then engineered her escape by dropping Alex's industrial artwork on Miss Terminator. She didn't want to answer too many questions, so she was only prudent to disappear. Once again, Sarah finds herself on the run, but the Terminator is equally relentless and pursues her. Sarah gets into another cab, seeing the rain of bullets wetting the streets with blood. The cab driver rushes out of there, but the Terminator hijacks a bike and remains hot on Sarah's trail. The final battle. The cabbie pulled a stunt and toppled the Terminator off her bike. Moving forward, they found a small army of cops waiting the cop-killer Terminator. However, as would be expected, this turned into another bloodbath. The police roadblock did not do much to block. The Terminator was aiming her gun at Sarah, but this time around, something else happened, and one could smell of solder. The Terminator was down, and holding the weapon was Ruggles. He had electromech phaser in his hand, the anti-Terminator weapon from the future. But how did Ruggles get his hands on one? Anyway, with Ruggles was Michael, and in this moment, Sarah questioned her judgment and berated herself for even thinking about murdering this man, a man who loved her so dearly. The three of them waste no time and get out of there. Ruggles brings the Connors up to speed about the whole deal with the Terminators, and the war and the real Sarah Connors, the one who birthed John. Naturally, they ask Ruggles who he was and how he got involved into the whole thing. Ruggles reveals that he was just 21 when he saluted John for the last time in the future and came back in time to the year of 1955 with a singular mission: prepare and protect Sarah Connor in case the mechanical monsters choose to come back and hurt a young Sarah. Ruggles hatches a plan to sneak the Connors out of the city using the ferry, but things go sideways when the Terminator catches up. A fierce battle kicks off on the boat, and Ruggles, despite being mortally wounded, fights bravely. He falls into the water, weapon in hand, and in a last heroic act, he manages to severely damage the Terminator, sacrificing himself in the process. Meanwhile, Sarah Connor tries to use the chaos to take out Michael, but her plans are cut short. The damaged Terminator, with its final move, grabs Sarah's leg as it topples into the water, pulling her down to a watery grave. Against all odds, Peanut and Michael Connor make it out alive. Marvelous verdict. Robinson and Wagner deliver a unique Terminator story set in 1984, parallel to the first movie. This time, a female Terminator is on the prowl, mistakenly targeting a different Sarah Connor, a scam artist honeymooning in San Francisco. The plot thickens with her sinister plan to off her new husband for his wealth. The action peaks when the Terminator strikes their hotel and Eugene Ruggles from the future steps in for a showdown. James Robinson's work is a mixed bag for me. Some hits, some misses, but no elaboration on that. Matt Wagner's art, however, nails it in this story, perfectly mixing action, horror, noir, and a dash of humor. It's a classic 90s comic. The quirky part, a pop-up gimmick, the Terminator on a stolen motorcycle leaping over a police blockade, all in a pop-up double-page spread. Fun to look at, but it makes a flipping to the book a bit awkward. Despite its quirks, this book is a keeper for me. It stands out from the rest of the Dark Horse Terminator series and earns a spot on the graphic novel shelf, avoiding the fate of being boxed away. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.